here again with Mr. Marco Marsili, and we have another segment. Thank you very much, Mr. Marco. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for the second invitation. I'm really honored and pleased to join this very interesting program that you conduct on the net.
Yes, Mr. Marco, we are in the first segment. We are talking about the history of Ukraine conflict, the genealogy of Ukraine conflict in your perspective, and you can you give us a very detailed perspective about what happened in Ukraine and also the background of the recent security and defense for Russia. Now we want to know about the origin of what we call Nazi, Azov, the brigade of Azov, because in Indonesia, our Indonesian ambassador who work in Ukraine said that the Nazi, let's say Azov brigade is only a myth. This is not in in reality. So could you tell me about that? Please.
Firstly, just to get into directly to get into the topic, the Azov battalion or Azov brigade, as you want to characterize it, it was a paramilitary unit. So it means that it was not framed within the Ukrainian armed forces. But you must figure out that you are in Norway, in England, in the United States, in Switzerland, whatever you want, and that the government allows people that are not from the armed forces to have weapons. So these people, they are paramilitaries. They were not part of the regular armed forces, but they were allowed to carry weapons, to have weapons, arms. And so most of these people, they still are neo-Nazis, white supremacists, racists, and anti-Semitists, and so on. So they represent the worst. They are a scam. So that's why I published 1 year ago a paper about the Russia-Ukrainian conflict and the accession to Ukraine to the European Union, and I expressed my concerns about the membership of Ukraine to the European Union. Why? For this reason, because these values, the Azov battalion values, are deeply rooted within the Ukrainian society, and the politics, they are governed by these formations. I mean, they are able to organize a protest, an uprising, and so on. So the former governments were all overthrown by protests, following mass protests in the main square in Kiev, because these formations, these people are very motivated. A moderate people like me, we do not go in. We do not gather with other people with arms, with weapons. We do not call for violence to overthrow a government. We simply vote and we cast our ballot in the voting box, or we can choose also not to vote, but it doesn't matter. But we do not pursue violent means. But these people, and the majority of the Ukrainian society, of course, there are also moderate and good people in Ukraine, but the politics are driven by these formations, by right-wing extremists. I'm not saying it personally. We have reports by the OSCE, by the European Parliament, before the Russian-Ukrainian conflict broke out, before. Now, nobody talks about it, but there is a report by the European Parliament that states that it's impossible to deal with any Ukrainian government. It doesn't matter if it's a pro-Russian or a pro-Western government, because all these governments are manipulated, by right-wing parties or right-wing extra-parliamentary groups. This is a reality in Ukraine, a reality. And the Ukrainian society doesn't want to pursue a pro-Russian or a pro-European Union path, because these formations, I mean, neo-Nazis, they do not want to join anybody. They are for the supremacy of their country. Ukraine as an independent country that does not belong to any kind of organizations. So, and this is a legacy from the Second World War, just to come back to the origins of neo-Nazism in Ukraine, because during the Second World War, from 1943 to 1945, the Ukrainian nationalists that were led by Stephan Bandera, that it was that is still considered by the Ukrainian leadership a national hero. It was a very, very anti-Semitic, suprematist, and a Nazi. That time, during Second World War, he was a real Nazi. So he organized his party. There was the party of Ukrainian nationalists. He organized a formation that joined a group that joined officially the SS as the SS Galicia Division. So the Ukrainians participated in the Second World War with the Nazi Germany in the conflict, and they were responsible. They were held accountable of having killed mass murders that amounted up to 100,000 Jewish and Polish killed in Galicia during the Second World War. So I'm talking about a genocide that was conducted by Ukrainian nationalists during Second World War. If you look to the Azov members, they still bear the Nazi insignia and the Nazi symbols like the dark sun and everything, and the swastika and all these symbols. And they have also tattoos, the Nazi legacy tattoos on their body. So they are really pro-Nazi. They are still this way, and they were sent by the Ukrainian government since 2014 to fight against the civilian population in the breakaway republics of Lugansk and Donetsk in the Donbass. So the Ukrainian government used this militia, because at that time Azov was not framed within the armed force, against the civilian population in Ukraine. So figure out in a Western country, a democratic country, that you allowed Nazi people having arms and sending them with the support of a government to fight against civilian population. In something that, I mean, you can't imagine, you can figure out. And just to close, the United States were aware of this because before the conflict broke out, I mean, before the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation, so about 2 years ago, a major article came out on Times, the American magazine, addressing the issue of the Azov Battalion. And the Congress was aware of this because there were 2 sessions held by the special committee within the US Congress, where the congressman called up the Secretary of State, Blinken, and before Mike Pompeo, asked to proscribe Azov Battalion as a terrorist organization, because they said that it is suprematist, anti-Semitist, neo-Nazis, and so on. And both the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and the following incumbent, Anthony Blinken, they refused to proscribe Azov Battalion as a terrorist organization. But it was requested by the members of the Congress, US Congress. So, I mean, on these grounds, what do you think? And there are many statues, many monuments in Ukraine, and many squares that are dedicated, that are named before Stephan Bandera. So Stephan Bandera nowadays is still a national hero, the man who founded the SS Division Galicia that was responsible for the massacre, the slaughter of about 100,000 Jewish and Polish in Galicia during the end of the Second World War. So this is the people we are talking about. So I am a European citizen. I do not have anything to share with this culture, with these values that are totally different and far away, miles from my culture. And the same problem we are facing with the so-called Visegrad bloc. I mean, so these countries, I'm talking about Poland, that now wants to come back to the ancient times of the Great Poland. So that there's a arms rush in Poland to make Poland big again and strong again for a confrontation against Russia, but also as a strong Western ally within the European Union and the NATO alliance. So these countries, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, and Hungary, they form this Visegrad bloc, and I mean that they have values that are completely different from the values that are shared by the majority of the Western countries, the European countries, by the European folks. So this is a main concern and the main issue that should be addressed, because you can't join Ukraine to the European Union just by a political decision. You have to consult before the European Parliament, and afterwards you should listen the national governments, and national governments should listen their populations. I mean, possibly through a referendum or whatever else, because this is a very tricky issue. I mean, we are talking about something that can change radically the balance in the European Union. Figure out this Ukraine joined with make a unique bloc with the Visegrad countries. And what we are assisting, just to close, is that Poland, the Polish parliament officially, some years ago, recognized that what occurred during the Second World War was a genocide. So Poland recognizes as a genocide what happened, what was perpetrated by the Ukrainians during the Second World War. So the mass murder of Jewish and Polish population in Galicia. But despite this, Poland is supporting.
How can
Ukraine.
you relate with the Zelensky phenomena, rise of Zelensky?
I think that he is overexposed. I mean, I think that, of course, he's proud. He's and his wife. They are so proud to appear in the media. They are like pop stars, or rock stars, or actors. So,
no, I mean, how can you relate the Azov brigade to the rise of Zelensky? Can you tell me?
Azov Battalion, so far to Zelensky and his government, the Azov is just a means to confront the Russian troops so far. But once you come to decide to join the European Union or the NATO, yes, you have to deal with these people, because these people will never accept, as I told you before, to join to choose for any party. They do not want to choose between the Russian bloc or the Western bloc. They want to be independent because they are, I told you, they are nationalists. Just so, like
it is different with the background of Zelensky ideology. Nothing to do with the Nazism.
The Zelensky ideology, because it doesn't matter who is the president and so on. Now there is an ongoing emergency that is the conflict with Russia. So everybody is making his best effort to try to win or to try to confront in a more efficient way the Russian troops. But at the end, when you sit at the table of the negotiations and you have to decide, I mean, these people, the neo-Nazis, the Azov Battalion, and the other neo-Nazis in parties and organizations in Ukraine, would never accept to lose Crimea or the Donbass, and would never accept to join the European Union or the NATO, because they are nationalists. Nationalism doesn't mean that you are leftist or right wing. You are an extremist. It doesn't matter. You are for your country, and that's all, for the supremacy of your country. That's why they are supremacists, and you put all these objectives together: supremacists, racists, and anti-Semites. Neo-Nazis. I mean, it's an overlapping of ideologies that makes an explosive powder altogether. That's why we should manage Ukraine very carefully and think about the accession to Western institution more deeply. And now these times when we are prompted by the enthusiasm of the emotions of the conflict.
How many people being Nazism in Ukraine actually? Do they like make some formal party? They join the election?
Yeah, there are parties, and they have also representatives elected within the Rada. Rada is the Vetrova Rada is the Ukrainian monocameral parliament. So they have right-wing formations that they run, they stand the elections, and sometimes they are able to elect representatives to the parliament. So, but the main point, it's not the representatives within the Ukrainian National Assembly. The main point are the formations and the group outside. These that are outside the parliament, that do not want to be part of the parliamentary business. Think about Hitler. Hitler thought that parliamentarism was bad and was weak for a nation. That parliamentarism was something, and Mussolini also, this both dictatorship of the last century, they both believe the parliamentarism was a weak, was a sick of democracies. So they thought that the only way for ruling a country was a strength way, through exceptional means, and with a cabinet that should not be responsible towards the parliament. So so these people, they have the same view. That they think that parliamentarism is something bad, because we're in parliament. I mean, it's a place when people makes their own business. It's just a place where interest meet some reaching point. It's just a place just in order where the leadership, the economic and the political leadership of a country make their business. I mean, it's about money and so on. Because if you look to the former Ukrainian presidents, they entered in power that there was maybe someone of them was already wealth, but they enriched so much. While the population becomes each day more poor, I mean, lives in poverty, because most of the population, Ukrainian population, lives below the level of poverty. Former Ukrainian presidents and former prime minister like Julia Tymoshenko, they earned a lot of money, and Julia Tymoshenko also was jailed for corruption, and his husband also. So it's a very corrupt society, and the Ukrainian politics are really and heavily corrupt, like most of the former Soviet Union countries, as you know. But it is the model of these countries, is that you elect is a presidential model like the US one, but without a check and balances. We do not have the same check and balances that there are in the US system. So you are a powerful president that is the only ruler de facto, and the parliament doesn't call nothing. The parliament just approves what has been decided by the president, who is the head of state and the head of the government at the same time. So, and parliamentarism doesn't count at all. That's why the Ukrainian right-wing organization, they do not want to have a real parliamentary system.
Okay, Mr. Marco, I want to ask about the acceptability of the common people. Do the common people mostly accept Nazis people?
I told you a survey should be conducted, an impartial, neutral survey should be conducted within the Ukrainian population, just in order to check. So far, we do not have any survey conducted through scientific method, and so far we do not know. But what I told you before, and that it doesn't matter which is the majority in the parliament, who is the president, because all the last government, all the last parliament, the last legislatives, and all the past presidents, they all supported the voting for establishing or reestablishing Stephan Bandera as a national hero, because Stephan Bandera was voted by the parliament as a national hero. And after some court rulings, I'm not talking, I do not want to come into details to explain you the story because it's a long story. But at the end, as Stephan Bandera was not Ukrainian born, when he was born at the time, his village was not part of the Ukrainian territory. So according to the law, Ukrainian law, he could not be a national hero, because when he was not born as an Ukrainian citizen, but as a Soviet citizen in another republic that was part of the Soviet Union republics. So that's why at the end of the day, that's why he was declared a national hero by the parliament and by the president, but at the end it was stripped. So his recognition was withdrawn. And all the presidents, and there is a legislation, a bill that was introduced in the current parliament, in this legislation, asking to restyle Stephan Bandera as a national hero. So just to tell you that it doesn't matter if the president or the parliament is pro-Russian or pro-Western, it doesn't matter. The politics are deeply driven, and the society and neo-Nazism is deeply rooted within the Ukrainian society. That's why we have so many statues, monuments dedicated to Stephan Bandera, as squares dedicated to Stephan Bandera.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mrambo. Very, very complicated situation in Ukraine, and we are talking about Azov. Nazism is related to the histories in 1945 until the raids in the era of Zelensky. So my last question is, so it is reasonable for Putin to denazification? It's reasonable. It's based on the fact, for your perspective.
The very early days of the conflict, the Russian leadership, starting from President Putin.
Yes, why, Mr. President Putin, why should do military operation to denazification? Acceptable or not for you?
But of course, he's right, because as I told you before, I mean, there is this Nazi legacy that is still living, still present, and driving the Ukrainian politics. And it's right that the leadership, even if it's a pro-Western and a peaceful leadership, it's driven by the square, by these right-wing extremist formations that are able to drive the Ukrainian politics. That's why it's necessary, according to Putin's view, to denazify Ukrainian politics and at the end Ukrainian society, because after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, all the monuments that dedicated, named before Stalin, dedicated to Stalin, were destroyed, you know, and the same should happen in Ukraine with Stephan Bandera. If the current government was a democratic government, a no pro-Nazi government, this government led by Zelensky would have taken down the statues, the monuments dedicated to Zelensky. But instead, he didn't do, and he will not do it, because he's a hostage of these right-wing groups. He's an hostage.
So what about the criminal that Azov did for Donbas people? I have ever seen the documentary about the people of Donbas oppressed by Nazi, by brigade of Azov.
Before the conflict broke out 1 year and a half ago, the Russian leadership has always called up the international community to stop.
So the story is real for you. So the story of the very cruel,
of course. It is, and but you know. When you talk about the Wagner Group, you should also consider the former Blackwater in the United States that are mercenaries, you know, and you should consider also Azov Battalion. There was, I told you, it was not a friend within the armed forces, not a regular group. It was a paramilitary group, just like Wagner Group. So if Azov Battalion and Blackwater, now Constellis, it's the change name, Constellation or Constellis, I don't remember the right name. It's a regular group, it's a legal one, a lawful one. So Wagner Group should be lawful, the same. I mean, you can use, I mean, two weights measures for this. It's easy.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bracco. Your explanation very detailed about the origin of Nazification, Nazi, yeah, neo-Nazi actually, and I hope that the conflict in Ukraine will be resolved soon, because I don't like a war actually. But your explanation enlightened us, like me as an Indonesian, we don't know exactly what happened now, because we just see from someone who live there, from the news, and I am very glad that you share your perspective. Thank you very much, Dr. Marco. See you.
For the invitation. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thank you.